His name's Joe Brady. He hangs out in Buffalo. He's got a pretty interesting pedigree. Dating back to LSU, you can even go further back than that. Hogue, why do you think the Bears are interested in Joe Brady? Can be numerous ways you can go with this. What's your breakdown of the Bears' interest?
So let's talk about Joe Brady. Let's put him through the model here and talk about his full candidacy with some of the bigger categories and questions and factors that we need to talk about with Joe Brady. 35 years old, has now been in the league for just 7 years total overall. Had a couple of years with Sean Payton before he went back to the college ranks. Obviously had success at LSU. Not so great of a run with the Panthers, and then now with Josh Allen in Buffalo, it's been going pretty well. So our first question is always, do you win and can you lead? I think there's questions here. His winning percentage, you don't have much to go off as a player in the NFL. As a coordinator, it's a little above 500. So, but it's not a huge track record here to go off of. Relatively small sample sizes in terms of the leadership. I mean, that's one of the biggest questions left here with Joe Brady. If he's talking to the Bears, how would he command the whole locker room? Is he an alpha leader? I don't think he rises to that level that we kind of usually talk about with some of those more obvious candidates who are clearly alpha leaders. So question marks there. Ability to hire a strong staff. That's the next big factor. We was talking about the big three factors. This is number 2 on that list. And another one, well, I just don't know. He's only been in the league for 7 years. Didn't necessarily go well at the last stop. Does he have connections at 35 years old? I'm sure he has some, but can he put together a really, really good staff with the Bears? I would think that that's a question mark right now. In terms of offensive pedigree, if you want to just go off of what's going on with the Bills right now, you feel really good about it, right? Their offense, number 2 this year in EPA per play. Last year when he took over, he got a lot of credit. They actually dropped, though, in EPA per play from number 3 to number 6 after he took over as the play caller. Biggest question here, though, you got to dig into what happened in Carolina. And before I got more factors to talk about, but I'll bring you guys back into the conversation here a little bit. So do you guys remember off the top of your head who his quarterbacks were in Carolina when the Panthers were number 29 in EPA per play, towards the bottom of the league when he was running that Panthers offense?
Go ahead, Greg. I know you know the answer to this.
You don't have to know. I'm just trying to bring you guys back in the conversation. But the answers are Teddy Bridgewater, his first season, and then for most. Sorry, say that again.
Sam Darnold?
That's it. Sam Darnold was the quarterback for most of his second season before, remember, Brady didn't even make it to the end of that second season. He was let go in December. I think the Sam Darnold part of this conversation is something, if you're the Bears, you got to dig into. Because what have we been talking about all year with Sam Darnold? There's that sort of infamous photo that's been going around the internet of Darnold and Baker Mayfield together with the Panthers. And everyone talks about, Kevin O'Connell's been able to get out of Darnold. Well, it shows you how much coaching matters. Well, Joe Brady was his offensive coordinator in Carolina. We can't just ignore that. So, to me, there's a level of risk here. On the surface, you're like, oh, this would be great. Him and Caleb, great pairing. I mean, he's having his success with Josh Allen right now. Like, I like the wishful thinking. I like the hopefulness there, but I don't know. That just seems like a stretch to me. Before I keep going, I don't know if you guys have any response to that part of it, because I just feel like if you're going to go down the road here with Joe Brady, you really got to examine what went wrong in Carolina and compare it to what's seemingly going really well in a much better organization with possibly the MVP and Josh Allen.
Well, look, the Allen part of it, he's just got some really interesting things to say about Joe Brady, which excites me. Remember, he came in mid-season with them, right, and things turned. Right. And so that is impressive in itself.
He started picking up an emphasis to run the ball a little more.
Right. And then you listen to what Allen says.
Guys, I looked this up this morning. They were number 3 in EPA per play when they got rid of Ken Dorsey. I mean, it's not like they were a struggling offense.
His
Well, and wasn't it also that Josh Allen was turning the ball over at a high rate as well? Wasn't that the other aspect of this?
That number surprised me because they were scuffling along to the point they made a change. I didn't realize their EPA was that high, which makes me question EPA along with a million other stats out there. But, I mean, this was Allen said this about him. He's been fantastic, coming into the situation last year. It's not easy to switch play callers mid-year, and he came in from that on day one. You look at our splits, our success we had as a team, it's noticeable. And then more importantly to the leadership part of it, I mean, this is one guy and he's not going to say negative about his coach. I get all that. But this is what he says. He's one of the most positive guys in the building. He's always got juice and energy for the guys. I think that's something that we love and appreciate about him. He's as real as they come. Okay. I mean, again, one guy talking positive to the media about a coach going negative, but like that the juice part, as real as they come, those are things that I excite me as a Bears fan.
Well, and who did we hear that about in Chicago this year?
That would be Thomas Brown.
Thomas Brown, and I think there's a similarity with these guys that would be a concern of mine, and that is, correct me if I'm wrong, but Joe Brady, is a coordinator from the booth, right? And so how do you transition from calling plays in the booth, being that tell it like it is guy that people respect when you get back to the locker room after the game versus calling plays on the sidelines and doing all the things that Adam and all of us, we keep talking about here on the show, how much more responsibilities and how much different the job is being a head coach that calls plays versus an offensive coordinator that calls plays. And so that's where I'd have my reservation because we simply won't know how he can handle that job until we get to September. He can say all the right things through the summer. He can be on the right track developing Caleb. And then if we get to September and his head's spinning because of all the in-game management stuff that has to go on from all three phases, now all of a sudden that's taking a hit with how you're calling plays. So, to me, that's my biggest concern with Joe Brady, even if there are things that are, that can be optimistic about.
Right. And all that's fair. I keep on just going back into what people say about him because that's what I do. At LSU, the dude was beloved. And he took, obviously he's Joe Burrow's the quarterback. That certainly helps
Justin
things.
Jefferson, Jamar Chase.
That's what I'm talking about here, guys. This is a classic case where if you look at Joe Brady, I'm not saying Joe Brady won't be a good head coach at some point. I just feel like this is too soon for him. There's not enough evidence here that says he's going to transcend the lack of talent he's probably going to inherit, or be able to just take Caleb and run with him. Because there's just you bring up every spot he was successful at LSU with Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson, and then he goes to Carolina and they were almost dead last in the league, and then he goes to Buffalo and he's got Josh Allen. All of a sudden things are great again. There's too many questions there I need to have answers. And then quickly, just to wrap this up in terms of the factors. So we talk about experience. This is another area where I'm saying some of the obvious things here. He does not have any head coaching experience. He's 7 years in the NFL. It's not nothing, but a lot of these candidates the Bears are talking to, and a lot of the candidates that my research that I've found that have had success, they've been in the league for 20 years before they become a head coach. So he's still inexperienced. I do like the fact that he spent some time with Sean Payton. I think that's a feather in his cap. I also like, I've talked about this before, I like when coaches have spent time on the other side of the ball. And he got into coaching, I believe, linebackers on the other side of the ball. So he's been all offensive since, but I do like seeing that on his resume. Some experience handling the media, obviously, as an offensive coordinator. Not quite in a large market, but, that's on there too. The Bills this might surprise people. The Bills actually haven't been among the most aggressive teams in terms of decision-making under Sean McDermott. So I don't really know if I can give Joe Brady a nod in terms of aggressiveness. There's really no connection to the NFC North or weakening a division rival. There's no connection to Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan. These are things I get bonus points to. And then in terms of continuity with the front office, you got to think if he's going to be a serious candidate with the Bears, he's not going to come in here being like, no, I need my own GM or anything like that. So overall, I get why Joe Brady's in the conversation, but to me, he does not come near the top in terms of strongest candidates for the Chicago Bears.
Well, and real quick, because I know we have our fine guests from DLLS coming up to talk about Mike McCarthy and Deion Sanders, but it should be noted, well, I just would like to say, hey, let's give Joe Brady a little bit of credit. Everyone kind of wrote off the Bills to start the year, and they had a phenomenal year. Josh Allen had a phenomenal year, MVP level. So I'll give Joe Brady that credit. And then Kalen Kaler also put a spotlight on some things that maybe Bears fans don't know about Joe Brady and Caleb Wiliams' relationship going back to when he was much younger. And Kalen goes on to say, Joe Brady and Caleb Wiliams have a relationship going back to the summer of 2013 when 12-year-old Caleb met Brady as a camper at a William & Mary football camp.
That's
when
huge.
Brady was a linebackers coach at William & Mary.
Huge.
And Joe Brady was an offensive coordinator at LSU, and they were a front runner in Caleb's recruitment. And Joe Brady had a big influence on him potentially going to LSU. Obviously, Caleb Williams follows Lincoln Riley, but there is a history there between those two guys, which is why I think a lot of Bears fans like to attach Joe Brady to Chicago.
The Bears could do a lot worse is how I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to actually, when you really look at the coaching search right now, I know Bears fans are very nervous about this, but there's a lot of reason to believe that sort of wherever this falls, they're going to be in a better situation than they were at. We can talk about that in further detail down the line, like tomorrow. Ho, you got to leave because Jesse Alley's ready to go. And do you have any final words of wisdom before we say bye?
That'd be good.
No, just keep checking that coaching tracker. We have more and more write-ups on almost every single candidate now is covered, and more to come in my newsletter for diehards. You can also remember the coaching tracker is completely free, allchgo.com/coaching search, and I guarantee you it's the most intuitive and best tracker out there. Continuously updated with information with Pat Norton and Kevin Kaduk behind the scenes on that too. But then we have a bunch of bonus diehard content as well within that you can click on, and there's plenty of that coming, including my newsletter. So become a diehard as well with that QR code on the screen or allchgo.com/diehard.
We all silly like the mayor.